The lamp in the corner buzzed low as I typed the final line of my quarterly report. Glass of red half finished and the house still, just the low tick of the wall clock and the soft whir of the fridge in the next room. Then the message came. I'm with Jake tonight. Don't wait up. I didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. 5 words, 1 emoji, casual as a grocery reminder, as if Jake were a dentist appointment, as if I hadn't covered half her tuition, car insurance, rent, those first 2 years, as if I hadn't sat in the hospital waiting room during her mother's 3rd surgery, as if I didn't matter. I set the glass down, gently, carefully, like it was made of memory, reached for my phone, locked the screen without replying, then slid the laptop shut, stood, and walked over to the cabinet near the far wall. Behind a stack of old printer paper was a slim black folder, rubber banded, and labeled in my handwriting, Contingency A. If you're still listening and any of this feels uncomfortably familiar, hit like and subscribe. Most people just listen in silence, but the one click tells the team these stories matter. I laid the folder on the table, slipped off the band. Inside, everything I'd hoped I'd never need. Business card from a discreet attorney in Santa Clara, list of passwords for accounts she never knew existed, printout of our prenup, lines highlighted, my initials in the margin of Section 7C, infidelity, digital or physical, nullifies joint claims on shared property, savings, and entitlements. She never read it, skimmed, smiled, and passed it to her lawyer. She'd pushed for the prenup, ironically, said it was modern, said we both had our own lives, our own ambitions. I'd agreed, quietly added a clause, not out of distrust, but out of experience. I'd seen too many friends blindside themselves. I sat back, the folder open like a weapon that didn't need to shout to kill. My hands weren't shaking, my pulse didn't spike. Something colder had taken hold. She thought she'd lit a match. She didn't see the fuse already laid. Across the room, a framed photo of us smiled back from the bookshelf. Niagara Falls, 3 years ago. Her eyes crinkled from real laughter. My arm around her waist. I'd kept believing that version of her still existed until 8:37 p.m. My phone lit up again, this time a calendar reminder. Her dentist appointment was next week. Too bad she'd be using Jake's insurance now. I closed the folder, slid it into my leather satchel, and turned off the light. I had work to do. Not revenge, not rage, just release, executed with the same precision I once used to build our future. The suitcase wheels made no sound on the carpet. I didn't bother turning on the hall light. Muscle memory guided me. Steps down the hall, soft click of the safe behind the closet panel, the gentle slide of papers and drives into a waterproof bag. The keys were already in the dish by the door, sitting beneath the ceramic turtle she once gave me on a beach trip. I left them there without touching the turtle. It was 11:47 p.m. when I zipped the second duffel shut. I scanned the room once, just once. The couch we picked out together, the candle she always lit when company came over, still half melted on the coffee table. I didn't take anything sentimental, nothing she could say I stole. Only what was mine, by design, by discipline, by law, the essentials and the leverage. Everything else could rot. The elevator hummed softly in the garage as it opened to level B2. My car started on the first try. New plates, registered under a logistics company I'd set up a year ago. She thought it was a side hustle. She'd laughed about it to her friends once. His little rainy day business. She had no idea it held the lease to the hotel room I was driving toward. At 12:19 a.m., I checked in using a name that wasn't mine but was legally mine to use. The clerk didn't blink. I was just another guest to him. Room key in hand, I went upstairs, set the bags down, and sat at the small desk near the window. The lights of the city blinked below. My old life was still down there somewhere. She was still in it, but I wasn't. By 1:45 a.m., I'd secured the backups, transferred the last access logs, changed every password that mattered, deactivated the security cameras at the house, the ones only I knew how to reach from the secondary panel. The footage of me leaving would auto-delete in 4 hours. By dawn, it would be like I'd evaporated. At 2:12 a.m., I finally pulled out the burner phone. No photos, no apps, just numbers. I opened a new message and typed 10 words. Check Section 7C of your prenup, then call your attorney. I hit send, then powered the phone off and dropped it into the locked drawer of the desk. She wanted a reaction, a fight, some storm of emotion she could twist into blame. What she got was a vacuum. No return fire, no second message. Just the distant sound of a door closing she didn't even hear. Outside, the wind picked up, carried with it the faint whistle of change. Inside, I poured myself a glass of water, sat down on the edge of the bed, and let the stillness wrap around me. Not grief, not shock, freedom, cold, clean, precise. The burner buzzed at 6:03 a.m., one long vibrating pulse across the nightstand. I didn't move, let it ring out into silence. A second later, another vibration, then another. By 6:10, the messages started. Wait, what do you mean? 3 dots, then are you really doing this? Pause, then I thought we were just figuring stuff out. No apology, just confusion masked as concern. She was already trying to rewrite the timeline, trying to twist it into a gray area where no line had been crossed, where Jake was just a harmless night out, where I was the one overreacting. By 6:30, her tone shifted, more casual. Can we talk later? It's early. No mention of the prenup, no acknowledgement of what she'd sent. Just layers of fog thick enough to get lost in if I wanted to, but I didn't. At 7:15, a photo popped up on her social feed, our dog on the couch, sunbeam across his back. Her caption, "Slow mornings are the best," as if she were just easing into her day, not clawing for control of a situation she no longer owned. I opened a private browser, checked the metadata. Location, our house, the couch we bought together, the dog we raised. She wanted the world to think she was untouched, unbothered. She didn't understand that absence can speak louder than any post. By 9:42, she uploaded a story, black coffee, laptop, a notebook with client goals scrawled in blue ink. A song played faintly in the background, upbeat, forgettable. A caption floated over the image, "Productive day ahead." But the video stuttered halfway through. Her hand trembled as she lifted the mug, barely noticeable. But there, at 10:27, someone at her firm forwarded me a clip, no comment, just the footage. She was on a team call, smiling too hard, pitch too rehearsed, voice cracking slightly when she said, "And we'll pivot if needed, no worries." Her eyes kept flicking to something off screen, maybe the door, maybe the phone. By noon, she was in full performance mode, hair done, makeup sharp. Another story, her in the office laughing with a colleague. She never tagged him, but I knew who it was. I'd seen enough pictures to know Jake's silhouette, even in reflection. Her phone records wouldn't show my number. I'd already had it removed from the plan. She didn't realize it yet. That had come later, when the billing dashboard locked her out and the support line said I was the sole authorized owner. She wasn't calling to reconnect. She was calling to reframe, to soften the facts before they calcified. But she was too late. You don't get to name another man at 8:37 p.m. and play house again at dawn. Let her smile. Let her post. Let her believe she still had the reins. The truth was already leaving her behind, one silent step at a time. She showed up 3 days later in heels too sharp for the weather and a scarf that didn't match her coat, small signs she'd dressed in a hurry. Our financial advisor's office sat on the 4th floor, windows facing east, morning sun casting long stripes across the glass table. She didn't wait to be offered coffee. "I need to go over our accounts," she said. Still using the word "our" like it hadn't already been erased, Michael, the advisor, didn't flinch, just nodded and reached for a manila folder beside his keyboard. No pleasantries, no questions. He placed it in front of her and slid it forward. "This was submitted Tuesday morning," he said. She blinked, opened the folder. The first page was my signature, neat, precise, dated and notarized. The next page was the updated directive, removing her name from all jointly managed assets under the prenup clause. The bank accounts, investment portfolios, even the emergency funds we'd built over 8 years. The third page was the clause itself, highlighted in yellow. Section 7C, her own initials in the margin from when she first skimmed the draft. Infidelity, digital or physical, triggers immediate revocation of all shared entitlements, including financial assets, marital distributions, and spousal claims, retroactive to the date of incident. The phrase, "retroactive to the date of incident," landed like a steel rod across the glass. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Michael didn't fill the silence. He'd seen this play out before, just not with someone who thought she was still in control. She flipped the page. Her hand trembled slightly. The document wasn't aggressive. It wasn't cruel. It was just final. She reached for her phone, jaw tight. Probably to call Lauren, her attorney. I knew she would. That's why I'd removed Lauren's number from the shared plan the same night I left. The call wouldn't go through. The voicemail wouldn't even play. She stared at the screen like it had betrayed her. How is this possible? She asked, voice tight. Michael raised one brow. You both signed it 6 years ago. The terms are enforceable. You'll want independent counsel going forward. She didn't move. Just sat there, folder half open, the edges of her world curling in at the sides. She'd thought I'd react, maybe argue, apologize, fight for the relationship like a man who had something to lose. She hadn't imagined I'd already accounted for the loss. The casual text she sent, 5 words and a kiss emoji, had activated a clause she never took seriously, a clause that didn't care about intentions or regrets, only actions. And now, the systems were executing exactly as designed. By the end of the week, the story she wanted was already unraveling. She started small, texts to mutual friends, little check-ins laced with pity and implication. He's not responding. I think he's having a breakdown. Honestly, I didn't even mean it like that. Jake, please, Jake's married. It was just a joke. But people talk. Screenshots linger, and timing is hard to spin when the original message had gone out at 8:37 p.m. and my response at 2:12 a.m. had frozen the clock. One of her friends, Dana, I think, forwarded me a screenshot she sent trying to workshop a post. Should I just say he misunderstood, or that it was a prank gone wrong? She didn't realize Dana and I still shared a Dropbox folder, or that I'd already uploaded the full message history, 3 months worth, into a compressed, time-stamped archive. Jake wasn't just a colleague, he was a pattern. Dinners, late-night calls, inside jokes with double meanings, and one photo from a hotel bar that hadn't been meant for me, but ended up in my inbox anyway. The metadata didn't lie. Neither did the location tag she forgot to scrub. Jake's company email was copied on a few of the messages, innocently at first, then not. His name appeared in enough subject lines and time cards to raise questions, real ones, not from me, from HR. By Wednesday, he was transitioned off the project. No public explanation, just a quiet memo and a new team lead. Her office went silent the same day. Someone tipped her boss. Might have been coincidence, might have been the way she started showing up late, eyes red, phone clutched too tight. Thursday afternoon, she was called in for a private clarification. Her voice cracked when she denied everything. She said it was taken out of context, said I was trying to ruin her, said this wasn't fair. But fairness was never the currency. Truth was, and truth doesn't have to scream. It just has to show up with receipts. That night, she spent 23 minutes in the restroom. One of her coworkers, someone I'd never met, sent me a photo of her shoes peeking under the stall. No comment, just the image. The stall door locked, her reflection caught in the mirror. Smudged mascara, phone glowing in her lap. Probably rereading the text that started it all. Probably wondering how one moment meant to hurt me turned the spotlight onto her instead. She wanted to be the victim, wanted to paint me as cold, vindictive, unhinged, but facts have weight, and hers kept slipping through her hands. By Friday, the group chats were quieter, invitations slowed, side glances multiplied. People remember when someone's story doesn't line up. They may not say it, but they file it away. And every time she opened her mouth to explain, another piece of her credibility flaked off. She had the floor. She just didn't have an audience anymore. She must have expected to find a trail, some trace of the man she used to live with, a paperclip of the past still dangling somewhere, but all she found was silence. After the office fallout and Jake's reassignment, she shifted gears, less posting, fewer tears in public, more strategy. She was hunting now, not mourning. She wanted to know where I'd gone, how I'd disappeared so cleanly. She thought if she could just locate me, she could reframe everything, maybe even spin a reconciliation narrative. We just needed space. It got blown out of proportion. She reached out to a digital trace firm, discreet, expensive, the kind people hire when exes vanish or clients skip bail. Their report was efficient, cold as a scalpel, no forwarding address, no DMV updates, no recent flight records, credit profile quiet, utilities unchanged, socials untouched. She didn't understand yet that absence, when done right, is a craft. What they did find was a string of quiet land acquisitions in British Columbia. Scenic parcels outside of Nelson and Caslow, registered under a Wyoming holding company with no direct ties to my name. At least, not at first glance, but one of the deeds had been signed in person 2 months before she sent her text. The notary had scanned a biometric signature, a full legal match to me, not the name she'd known, but the name I kept tucked away under an old LLC I never talked about. One I formed back when she told me we should keep some things independent. The property was no cabin in the woods, not anymore. The report included drone shots. Her firm probably didn't think I'd ever see them, but they surfaced eventually. Slate roof, wraparound deck, 2 chimneys, solar array, a garage built for gear and solitude, satellite internet, 0 neighbors in any direction for half a mile. The firm listed it as high-value seclusion property under trust protection. She listed it as betrayal. She didn't understand how deep the roots went, that I'd been planning not a getaway but a re-entry into a life without surveillance, without apology, one foundation brick at a time. She printed the report, took it to her sister's house, slammed it down on the table. "He bought a house," she hissed, "while I was planning our anniversary." Her sister barely looked up, just asked, "Did you read the prenup before you signed it?" She didn't answer. Later that week, I got a message from an unknown number, just one line. "How long have you been building this lie?" I didn't respond. There was no lie, just a life I never shared with her because she never asked to see it, too busy curating the one she thought looked better in pictures. What shocked her wasn't that I'd left. What broke her was realizing I'd already been leaving long before she gave me a reason. It was a Tuesday evening. The retreat center lights were low, lanterns flickering along the gravel path, casting long shadows between the cabins and the main hall. I was finishing a quiet evening session with a group of founders, helping them strip back the noise, reconnect with focus, learn to build without ego. Irony, maybe, but I'd found peace in the precision of it. I didn't notice her at first. She sat behind the wheel of a dark sedan parked off to the side, tucked between 2 pine trees near the staff cabins. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her hair was pulled back too tight, as if restraint could hold her together. Window cracked an inch, eyes locked on the path. I felt her presence before I saw her, call it memory or instinct. 8 years of knowing when she was about to speak without having said a word. I didn't stop walking, not until she stepped out. "Please," she said. Just that one word, thin and brittle. The kind you don't use with strangers, the kind you save for when you're afraid you finally run out of time. I turned to face her, slowly. She looked smaller somehow, wrapped in a coat too thin for the mountain air, her fingers curled into fists like they were fighting gravity. "Can we talk?" she asked. Her voice had changed, softer, not performative, not clipped. It wasn't the voice she used in meetings or when deflecting or when trying to shape a narrative. It was raw, desperate, human. I looked at her, really looked, saw the wear in under her eyes, the faint pink along her nose from the cold, the way her jaw kept flexing like she was holding back everything. So I asked the only question that mattered. "Jake still in the picture?" She blinked, swallowed, shook her head. "It wasn't real," she said. I was stupid. I thought you'd chase me. I didn't think you'd just disappear." The wind moved between us, sharp and indifferent. I could hear the soft hum of the meditation room behind me, the muffled laughter of people who'd never known either of us. I nodded once, calm, detached. "Neither is this." She flinched like I'd slapped her, though my voice hadn't risen an inch. I didn't wait for a reply. I turned and walked toward the main hall, didn't look back. She stood there a while, I'm told. One of the staff said she lingered near the tree line for an hour, never came inside, never knocked on the door, just sat in her car with the engine off and the window cracked, holding a version of me that no longer lived in her world. She'd come hoping for closure, a scene, some crack she could slip through, a second chance at a conversation I'd already finished in my head the night she sent that message. But that man, the one who would have argued, cried, tried to fix it, he didn't exist anymore. And the silence she left behind had become my native tongue. The conference room smelled like dry carpet and overbrewed coffee, neutral walls, pale chairs, fake plants in each corner like props in a stage play. It was the kind of place where endings got dressed up as negotiations, where voices stayed low and nothing ever got truly fixed. She arrived late, flustered, jacket slipping off one shoulder, a legal pad clutched tight to her chest, as if scribbled notes could undo what had already calcified. I didn't stand when she entered, neither did my attorney. He simply opened the binder in front of him and waited. The mediator, a woman in her 50s with a voice like soft gravel, welcomed everyone with that quiet, measured tone people use around grief. My ex sat across from me, shoulders stiff, hair tied back in a way that used to signal control, but now only hinted at strain. Her lawyer whispered something to her, slid a pen across the table. We began. The mediator asked if either party wanted to open with a statement. Her attorney deferred. Mine didn't bother. He just flipped the binder to the first tab and pushed it forward. Timeline of digital communications, he said calmly. Inside, screenshots, emails, timestamps, hotel receipts, location logs from shared devices. Nothing vindictive, just facts. She stared down at the pages. Her fingers hovered, unsure whether to flip or fold. The next tab, asset transition filings, dated, notarized, lawful. Months of quiet preparation all triggered the moment she texted me about Jake. Her lips parted, then closed. She blinked hard. The house? She asked, barely above a whisper. Sold, I said. Final transfer cleared last Friday. She swallowed. The joint accounts? Secured. My attorney answered. Ownership was contingent on marital standing. That changed. So did the terms. Her lawyer leaned forward, trying to steady the crumbling table she was still pretending held weight. We believe there may be room to contest the interpretation of... My attorney cut in, polite but firm. You'd need to contest the clause itself. It was co-signed, initialed, witnessed, and triggered by her own documented message. There's nothing left to argue. Silence, the kind that comes not from lack of words, but from the crushing realization that words don't help anymore. She looked at me then, not with anger, not even with sorrow, just a kind of hollow confusion, like she'd woken up mid-fall and only now realized the ground wasn't coming back. She had played it like a game, pushed, flirted, tested, always expecting a reset button, a heartfelt conversation, a late-night fight that ended in messy forgiveness. Instead, she got structure, cold, efficient structure. She'd asked once why I never raised my voice during our arguments. This is why, I said quietly. Her pen sat untouched, her legal pad blank. No final appeal, no Hail Mary, just 2 signatures collected in silence, witnessed by people who didn't care how it started, only how it ended. She walked out slower than she came in, no eye contact, no flurry of texts afterward, just a door swinging shut behind her, as softly as the day she left me with 5 careless words and an emoji. Except this time, there'd be no reply. The podcast dropped on a Thursday, mid-morning slot, just another episode in a niche series for legal consultants and tech entrepreneurs. Most wouldn't have noticed it, except someone clipped a 60-second reel and posted it to a startup founders forum. That's when it started to move. The episode title, Digital Infidelity and the Silent Exit Strategy. The voice was mine, though flattened, pitch shifted, anonymized just enough to protect the details, not the message. I'd agreed to the interview weeks earlier at the host's request. We talked systems, not relationships, not revenge, systems, cause and effect, legal foresight, the clean mechanics of how emotion becomes evidence when mapped correctly. They asked if I could walk through a scenario, a case study, anonymous. I did. I read the original message exactly as it arrived that night. I'm with Jake tonight. Don't wait up. Then I followed with the only reply I'd ever sent. Check Section 7C of your prenup, then call your attorney. The host didn't comment, just let the silence sit there. A beat, then another. Then she asked, and what happened next? I already left, I said. 3 words, no flourish. That was it. Someone clipped that exact moment and posted it to Twitter with the caption, "She played checkers. He wrote the rules." By the next morning, it was viral. Reddit threads dissected the prenup clause like it was a plot twist. TikTok duets reenacted the Jake text in dramatic whispers. Lawyers started quoting the clause in think pieces about modern digital boundaries. Men's forums called it a masterclass in emotional control. Women's groups debated whether the silence was strength or cruelty. She was never named, neither was I, but people knew. The ones close to her, close to us, recognized the pattern, the timing, the tone. Her friend deleted a post she'd made weeks earlier calling me cold and distant. Someone commented underneath, "He wasn't cold, he was finished." I never shared the clip, never linked it, but I heard from people I hadn't spoken to in years. A guy from college messaged me, "Saw the podcast. Respect." My former boss forwarded the reel with one line, "You always did play the long game." Even my brother, who never weighed in on anything, sent me a single emoji, the king. And through it all, she said nothing. I checked once. Her socials were still active, but quieter now. No photos, no memes. A profile that had once screamed for attention now whispered into the void. There was no vindictiveness in the episode, no smear, just data, structure. A story told with clinical calm by someone who had stopped needing validation the moment he reclaimed his peace. It wasn't revenge. It was a record. It came late, weeks after the podcast, after the dust had long settled, and she had no more moves to play. Just a quiet ping to a number I rarely used anymore. The message was short. No dramatics, no blame this time. "I lost everything. I just want to understand why you did it this way." No greeting, no name. She wasn't reaching for reconciliation. She knew that door had rotted off its hinges. This was something else. A final gasp in the deep end. Not to pull me back in, but to hear something, anything that might make the silence make sense. I stared at the words longer than I expected, not because they hurt, but because they didn't. Once, her voice could stop me in my tracks. Now, all I heard in that message was the ghost of someone who never listened until the echo came back empty. I didn't type fast. I chose the words like I used to choose her birthday gifts, carefully, quietly, with intention. Then I sent them without hesitation. Because silence teaches what arrogance won't. Read, delivered, no reply. I blocked the number, not out of spite, not to prove a point, just to end the loop. Outside the cabin, the last bit of snow clung to the shaded side of the trees. Birds were quiet. The mountain wind hummed against the edge of the deck. Somewhere below, the lake barely stirred, flat, undisturbed, as if it, too, had moved on from storms. Inside, the fire was low but steady. My mug was still warm. No missed calls, no unanswered questions, just the low hum of stillness and a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding since that night at 8:37 p.m. She sent her final message looking for meaning. I gave it to her, not with fury, not with grief, but with a line she'd never forget because it was the first one she couldn't twist.